The rain poured relentlessly against the towering glass walls of the corporate headquarters. But inside, in the hushed, climate-controlled air of the executive suite, the atmosphere was even colder. The conference room, a place of immense power, buzzed with a low, almost imperceptible tension as the CEO, Daniel Hartman, watched the live and very secret surveillance footage from various parts of his own company. And on one of those screens, he watched his own mother, Eleanor, dressed in a faded, gray cleaning uniform, her beautiful silver hair tucked discreetly under a simple mesh skirt. As she wiped the gleaming, polished floors of the very same building she had once helped him dream about, but no one in that room, no one in that entire billion-dollar company knew her true identity. To them, she was just an old invisible woman, a ghost in a gray uniform, a person who was meant to be ignored. Daniel, with a heart that was heavier than he had ever known, had been the one to send her undercover. He was desperate to uncover the toxic, corrosive culture he had begun to suspect had festered, like a cancer, just beneath the polished, perfect surface of his own and very successful empire. Before we dive deeper into this incredible story of a mother's love and a son's desperate search for the truth, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the profound and very real importance of treating every single human being with dignity, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, Kindness Corner. Your support helps us to continue sharing these stories that truly matter. Daniel's mother had been hesitant at first. She was in her late 60s, a woman who had earned her rest. She was unsure if she could handle the grueling physical work, the long, lonely nights of a janitor. But when she had seen the deep and very real disappointment and worry in her own son's eyes, she had, without a moment's hesitation, agreed. For weeks, Daniel had been hearing the whispers, the quiet, anonymous complaints of mistreatment among the lower-level staff, the rumors of a growing, unchecked arrogance and a casual and very real cruelty from some of his most trusted and most highly paid top executives. It wasn't just about profit margins anymore. For Daniel, it had become about humanity. Eleanor's own heart had broken when she had heard her son, a man she had raised to be good and kind and decent, begin to doubt the very people he had once, so completely and so implicitly, trusted to run his company with integrity. And so, as she now scrubbed the floors and emptied the trash cans of his empire, she began to witness firsthand the ugly, unvarnished truth that he had so deeply and so desperately feared. Each night, she would return to her own small, quiet home, her body aching with a fatigue she hadn't felt in years, the hot, shameful tears threatening to spill. But she held on. She held on because she knew that her son, her good and very powerful son, needed to see what she was seeing. One afternoon, while she was cleaning the pristine white bathrooms of the executive wing, Eleanor overheard a conversation that pierced her heart. Several of the department heads were in the hallway laughing. "You know," one of them had said, his voice a loud, braying sound of pure, unadulterated arrogance, "even the help around here is replaceable. We should just fire the entire overpaid janitorial staff and replace them with a few cheap robots. Think of the money we could save." It wasn't just the words. It was the venom, the casual, cruel, and very real dehumanization behind them. Eleanor's hands, which were scrubbing a sink, trembled, and she fought the powerful maternal urge to go out there and confront them. But instead, she took a series of deep, steadying breaths, and she made a mental note. She relayed every single ugly detail to Daniel later that evening, and the more she revealed, the darker and the uglier the picture became. Daniel, watching his own mother endure such casual and very public humiliation, felt torn between a white-hot protective rage and a deep and very personal guilt. But he knew, with a pragmatist's cold, hard logic, that his own patience was crucial. They needed more. They needed something undeniable. Well, and so, with a heavy and very reluctant heart, he asked the company's head of security to discreetly enhance, The surveillance on the executive floor, he instructed them not to intervene, not unless things became physically dangerous. It wasn't long before things escalated. One rainy morning, Eleanor arrived early to clean the main conference room, just before a major high-stakes board meeting. As she was mopping the long, polished floor, the senior management team stormed in, arguing loudly amongst themselves about a delayed project. Seeing her there, one of them, a notoriously arrogant and ambitious man named Victor, sneered and, with a deliberate, almost theatrical carelessness, accidentally knocked over his full hot cup of coffee, letting the dark, steaming liquid spill across the pristine white conference table and onto the floor that she had just moments before. Finished cleaning, without a single word of apology, he simply pointed at the mess and demanded that she earn her pay. Humiliated, but with her composure still intact, Eleanor silently and with a profound, almost regal grace, cleaned up the mess. But the breaking point, the final and most unforgivable straw, came later that same day, during a staff celebration that afternoon. A celebration for the closing of a major deal. Victor, his face flushed with champagne and his own sense of a bloated self-importance, grabbed a full glass of ice-cold water, and in a final, terrible display of a cruel and very public mockery, he walked over to where Eleanor was kneeling on the floor, picking up a piece of broken glass, and he poured the entire, full glass of water over her head. The room, which had been so full of a loud, false laughter, erupted in a new and very real and very ugly sound of a genuine, cruel amusement. Tears, hot and shameful, welled in Eleanor's eyes, but she refused, with every last ounce of her profound and very powerful will, to let them fall. She stood up, her dignity a silent and very powerful shield, and with her gray hair now dripping with ice water, she simply turned and walked away in a profound and very final silence, her own heart and her son's shattering into a million irreparable pieces, watching the final, unforgivable act of humiliation unfold live on his private monitors. Daniel could no longer contain his fury. The time for quiet, patient observation was over. The next morning, he summoned his entire staff to the main auditorium, and with the entire company present, with every single employee from every single department watching, he played the surveillance. Footage on the massive state-of-the-art screen behind him. Gasps of a genuine, profound shock filled the room as the employees watched the disgraceful and very public behavior toward the old and very quiet cleaner. Daniel then walked onto the stage, his own voice trembling with a powerful and very real emotion, and he revealed the truth. "The woman," he said, his voice a quiet but very powerful and very clear sound that echoed through the silent, stunned room, "the woman that you have all mocked and ignored and humiliated is my mother." The room fell into a dead, stunned silence. Faces turned pale. Eyes dropped to the floor in a collective and very heavy shame. Daniel, fighting back his own tears now, addressed the crowd. He spoke of compassion. He spoke of respect. And he spoke of the kind of inclusive and very human culture he now wanted to build in his company. And then he announced the immediate and very public dismissals of every single person who had been directly involved in the abuse of his mother, regardless of their position, regardless of their power. Victor and several of his other high-level executive cronies were quietly and very efficiently escorted out of the auditorium by security. Under the silent, watchful gaze of their now former peers, the atmosphere in the company shifted overnight. Departments underwent a new and very mandatory training on empathy and respect. Daniel personally met with every single staff member, from the top to the bottom, ensuring that there were now new and very open channels for grievances, and he began to promote a new and very real culture of kindness. Eleanor, though shaken by her ordeal, stood proudly beside her son, a quiet, powerful symbol of the profound and very necessary change that had come to his company by the end of it all. Daniel and Eleanor had reminded everyone from the boardroom to the mailroom of a single, simple, and very powerful truth: that the titles, the money, and the power. They mean absolutely nothing without a basic and very necessary human decency. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. And please leave us a comment below. How would you have reacted if you were in that office that day? We read every single one of your messages, and they truly inspire us to keep sharing stories like this.